हॅलो
हॅलो
मंदार, गुड इव्हनिंग.
गुड इव्हनिंग. गुड इव्हनिंग.
गुड इव्हनिंग. योगेश, आवाज नीट येत नाही.
आवाज येत नाहीये.
योगेशचा
हा, काय वहिनीने गळा वगैरे दाबला असेल तर काय सांगताय?
आवाज येतोय का? माझा का?
कोणाचा गळा दाबलाय रे? योगेश.
माझा आवाज येत नाही का?
कोणाचा गळा दाबलाय? येतोय योगेश.
आवाज येत नाही का? येतोय ना
अरे
आवाज?
येतोय.
ओके.
पण कसं की असा मागून गळा दाबल्यासारखं येतो रे.
मग मी बदलतोच. मी ते स्विचवर करतो, मग दुसऱ्या नेटवर्कवर येतो.
नाही राहू दे.
म्हणजे थोडक्यात चिरकल्यासारखं म्हण की.
नांदेड सिटी आवाज खूपच वाढत चाललाय. आवाज जोरात आहे म्हणलं इथून.
गळा दाबलेला नाही ते
काय आमचं
नांदेड सिटीवाल्यांचा गळा नाही दाबलेला.
आम्हालाच मारा फक्त.
अर्धवर येऊ म्हणतात ना, तसला येते बुलढाणा नांदेड सिटीचा.
बर व्हिडिओ तर नीट दिसतोय ना? बरं, हा आलाय का आपला विवेक पवनारकर? आलाय का रे?
दिसत तर नाही बाबा.
हा मस्त. हा कोण गार्डन मध्ये बसलाय मस्त पैकी? शिंदे,
नवनाथ
जयरथ शिंदे.
जयरथ काय?
बरं, मी व्हिडिओ स्टॉप करतो आता. आवाज येतो का क्लिअर?
हो रे, हो येतोय.
मी व्हिडिओ थांबवलाय.
कुठे थांबवलाय?
बंद केलं ना माझा व्हिडिओ.
काय म्हणते बार्शीकर?
आवाज नाही दिला.
अरे हे काय त्याला, बार्शीला कोणी अजून नाहीये वाटतं.
म्हणजे
ग्रीन झोन आहे. ग्रीन झोन.
हो, ग्रीन झोन आहे अजून.
हो, गुड.
बार्शीच्या जवळ ते परंड्याला सापडलेत.
हो, परंड्याला ते सापडले. हो.
शशिकांत, मला एक टेक्निकल गायडन्स पाहिजे होता.
हा, बोल ना.
ऐक ना, हे मी जेव्हा इतके दिवस मी आपला झूम सेशन मध्ये अपग्रेड केलं, झूम अपडेट आला, तर मला तो चॅटचा ऑप्शनच निघून गेला रे. डायरेक्ट इन्व्हाइट वरच येतो. आपण जेव्हा पार्टिसिपंट वर जातो ना, तुम्हाला चॅट आणि इन्व्हाइट असतं ना, म्हणजे चॅट आणि उजव्या बाजूला इन्व्हाइट. माझं ते चॅट केलंच आहे, डायरेक्ट इन्व्हाइटच दिसते फक्त मला.
चॅट आणि इन्व्हाइट कुठलं म्हणतोय?
लेफ्टला चॅट असतं, राईटला इन्व्हाइट असतं पार्टिसिपंट लिस्ट मध्ये. ठीक आहे, चॅट ऑप्शनच गेलाय माझ्याकडचा.
बघावं लागेल. माझ्याकडे अजून ते गेलेलं नाही. ते मंदार सांगू शकेल काहीतरी.
नाही, मी परत इन्स्टॉल करतो. नाही तर आज एवढी काय मला पाठवायची गरज नाही पडते, पण आय सी.
हाय बालाजी
बिरादार. सायंटिस्ट दिसतो बाबा.
सायंटिस्ट आहे म्हणलं सायंटिस्टच दिसणार ना रे. सायंटिस्ट आहे म्हणल्यावर एवढं दिसायला पाहिजे का?
बरोबर आहे ना.
माझं प्रिपरेशन बऱ्यापैकी चांगलं चाललंय बरं का. तर मी उद्या दुपारपर्यंत पाठवून देईन पीपीटी.
हो, चालेल. कारण बुधवारी तुझं सेशन आहे ना. उद्या म्हणजे लेट झालं ऍक्च्युली.
अच्छा.
बरं, ठीक आहे. हा आलाय का रे?
नाही रे अजून.
गुड इव्हनिंग विवेक.
ठीक.
विवेक आलाय.
हा, आलाय. विवेक आलाय. हाय विवेक.
चला, तुझीच वाट पाहत होतो आम्ही. हॅलो सर. पोस्ट येतो काय तर आमची सगळी गाडी गुल्ल झाली असते.
Give me one more minute. I'm logging in one more time.
Okay.
Yes.
Give me one more minute.
Take 2 minutes. 5:32 ला आपण सेशन सुरू करणार आहोत.
All right, sir.
राजकुमार विश्वनाथे, वेलकम.
राज विश्वनाथे.
सगळ्यांना आठवण द्यायची गरज आहे का काय? जरा मी बघतो काय.
हा विवेक, तुला बाकीचं सगळं माहिती आहे ना?
सगळं म्हणजे
स्क्रीन शेअर करायचं, बाकी याचे काय टेक्निकॅलिटीज, काही डिफिकल्टी नाहीये ना तुला प्रेझेंटेशन याच्यावरती द्यायला?
काहीच नाही सर, काहीच नाही.
ग्रेट. आणि आपलं सेशन कसं आहे आता ते तुला एक्सप्लेन केलंच असेल याने, योगेशने. ऍक्च्युली first 20 to 25 minutes you will be delivering your session, and post that, like say, there will be question answer session.
No problem. I'm open to take questions in the middle of the session also. No problems. Can be
No,
as
नाही, काय होतं माहितीये का, ते विनाकारण म्हणजे प्रोलॉंग होतं सगळ्या गोष्टी, आणि मग पुढचं तुला आपलं सेशन कम्प्लीट करायला थोडंसं डिफिकल्टी होईल. त्यामुळे मी सांगतोय की like we will have it at the
very important can be okay.
झाले.
चला शशिकांत, मी इंट्रोडक्शन देतो त्याचं. आय थिंक वी शुड स्टार्ट.
राईट. पण सगळ्यांना आधी म्यूट करायला सांग.
हो, सांग. Everyone please mute. Some certain protocol that needs to be followed. See that you are away from your family members or maybe from TV or any other electronic gadgets, because it creates a disturbance most of the time, which you are not aware of. Other than speaker, me and Shashikant, others are requested to mute the phones, so it will have a very clear and clean sessions. Third thing is, presenter is going to present a very some important question can come in between, but generally the practice is presenter will go for 20-25 minutes of his speech and presentation, followed by question answers. Just though we do not have time right now, but just to keep everyone informed, yesterday late night or maybe today early morning we lost one of our 83 batch Ajinkyans, so our condolences to that family. Now we cannot hold for a minute or two, but if time permits, post the session, we may just put in our Shraddhanjali, what we call, for a minute or so. Anyway, coming back to the main topic, today we have Vivek Paunarkar, 1993 batch, a very intellectual person, having a good SAP practice of his own, obviously business in Aurangabad of his own again, and a master in what you call is the topic that he is going to talk about today, that supply chain management. Many feathers of success are there in his cap. Today's session also would be one more addition to his cap, so I would not take much more time, but I will pass it on to Vivek Paunarkar to start his presentation and enlighten us on the topic. Vivek, please.
Thank you so much asking. And yes, we said that this is going to be a 30 minutes presentation, so I have about 15 to 16 slides prepared to share with you the basics of supply chain management, and I'm going to illustrate a little bit in depth with using some examples from the pharmaceutical industry. At the end of the session, we will probably be able to explain a few basics of supply chain, probably hold a 2-minute elevator speech on what supply chain management is, maybe explain what your colleagues at your own organization, what kind of work they are doing at supply chain management. Probably one of the added benefits of the session could be some of our colleagues or Ajinkyans who are in the early phase of their careers, they can make or take a call whether to adopt some of the skill sets that are required to manage supply chains at their own organizations, or take up new courses in studying supply chain management. Shashikant, if you can allow me to do a screen share, please. Yeah. I've logged in from my laptop as well, and I've logged in as Vivek. Just Vivek, can you please allow me to share my screen?
Please. I have shared.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll put this in a screen share mode. As I said, I'll be sharing the basics of supply chain, and I'll be highlighting a specific industry that I've chosen, which is the pharmaceutical industry. And I'll open the session with a quote from Sun Tzu, the noted author of The Art of War. He was the Chinese strategist and a general, very famous general. His book is read worldwide, one of the most read books, The Art of War. And he explains the role of logistics. Logistics, as we know today, is a kind of a synonym for transportation. So just beginning to explain what are the key words in supply chain. So this is one aspect of operations or one aspect of supply chain which enables a, a party or participant to emerge victorious in a warlike situation. In today's world, the behavior of corporates is also no less than warlike situations, right? And supply chain management as a tool is also gradually becoming a very strong additive advantage to win corporate wars. And corporate wars basically means getting more and more revenue, getting more and more market share, and more customer retention in terms of the sales process. Okay, so the importance of logistics is imminent from probably from the time when the history of civilizations have been written. And in over next few minutes, I'm going to explain some of the core things of supply chain management. Logistics, as the word came up in the earlier slide, is just one component of the overall supply chain management as a concept. Okay, in very simple words, supply chain, the first two words of supply chain basically is a network, and it is a well integrated network of different physical structures belonging to multiple organizations. And the job of these physical structure or the job of the network is to move material from one location to another, and in process adding value, either in form of storage or in form of conversion of raw material and packaging material into finished products, and to perform transportation. And the core objective of the entire exercise is to meet the customer demand. Okay, if there is no customer pull, all these activities are completely useless. All right. So on your left hand side, you will see that there is, on one end we have a symbol for mining activity and a symbol for farming or forestry kind of an activity. Most of the raw material are extracted from these two main sources. These are then moved from a place to another. So I've just shown tier 1 and tier 2 kind of processing structure. In the raw materials gets transported, and conversion happens from a physical form or a chemical form into another, so that it is useful for these next activity in the overall product processing. In the course of this presentation, I'm going to explain a few words. There are names that will come up. You'll hear names something like an OEM. So OEM basically means an original equipment manufacturer. That's just a full form. What it means is it is the person who finally owns the brand of that specific finished product, and the person is basically the one who's responsible for supplying the product in the finished form to the ultimate customer through a network of warehouses and distributors or dealers till the point it reaches your customers. Okay, so you will also notice that the flow of the material is unidirectional. It is starting from your raw material suppliers and moves from left of your screen till it goes all the way to the right side of your screen. This is true for, let us say, a very, very generic supply chain management scenario. But there will be multiple scenarios wherein certain component in the middle of its processing needs to be given back for further processing, or for some kind of a rework to be done, or rejections that have happened. So a lot of time you will see that a customer is actually returning it, especially when we are looking at the advent of e-commerce. A lot of time we tend to look at the quality of the product or the content of the package that we have received from Amazon, for example, we would return it back. So there is a whole lot of return logistics that is involved in supply chains, especially these days after the advent of e-commerce as the prominent supply chain players. Okay, but for you to help understand in a very simplistic way, this is how the material moves from the left hand side, from the raw material sources to the points where it is getting processed, and then it gets assembled finally at the original equipment manufacturer, and then it flows all the way to the customers through a network of different warehouses. Now, this warehouses, you would see that this is just one layer of a warehouse. It could be actually multiple layer of warehouse. There would be a concept of mother depots and the child depots, carrying and forward until then it is arrived at your doorstep, or you actually go to the retailers and buy some products out of those retail shops. So this is very primary and basic layout of a supply chain. And now, why do we really need to manage the whole supply chain? Why can't the material just flow just as if a river is flowing? First of all, because there are lots of different types of organizations that are there. The organizations belong to different ownerships. First of all, they could be belonging to different geographies. They could be belonging to multiple countries, right? Supply chains can can exist trans different continents and countries as well. And that is why to make this material move from one place to another, a proper management is required. Now, what do we mean by management? What are the basic things that we, or what do we achieve by doing management? Basically, when you manage your supply chains better, you can achieve the core goal of your organization, which is to supply the material against a given demand. So that is where the sales happen. If there is no supply chain network, there is no sales that is going to happen. So to achieve that basic sales and to do this provision of material in the correct place at the correct time over and over, that is how you achieve growth as an organization. I'm getting a message that somebody is not able to see the presentation. Are you not able to see? I heard from Colonel Raj.
Yeah.
It is available.
You're okay. There is an issue with Colonel Raj. Can somebody please help him to sort this out?
You continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Then one needs to make also an account of what is the material that is moving. How much did we purchase? We saw that we get some material from the raw material suppliers. We get it manufactured. So we need to know how many kilograms were purchased, how many tons were converted from a specific raw material. So that activity is called basic accounting and bookkeeping. Okay, so that is also a part of supply chain management. We need to know whether we are effective in getting the raw material converted from X amount to another Y amount of finished products. Okay, and finally, to get more and more profits in this age of competition, we need to do these activities more efficiently. Efficiently means we need to do it faster. We need to do it with as little amount of money being spent into these activities. Okay, and there is no fun in doing these activities if there is no synchronization. You need to get this material placed at right point of time. You need to have the raw materials placed into the factories when there is a capacity available with you, when there is power available, when there is labor available with you, and there is sufficient time available with you. So that is the simple thing called as synchronization. You need to get a vehicle into your warehouse. You need to call that vehicle when you need to when you have all the the boxes ready and the pallets that are ready and the people are ready to load that vehicle into the material. So that is the meaning of synchronization. Okay, so and it takes a lot of effort to bring synchronization in multiple activities that are involved in all the small little steps that are there for converting a raw material and delivering it all the way to your customer. Okay, and then you need to control, you need to measure that, okay, whatever monies that are being spent, whatever time is being spent, that needs to be controlled. Okay, and then you need to also think of future, that what if there is a kind of a tsunami, what if there is a COVID, what if there is a MERS or a SARS that is going to happen, what if all your flights are getting cancelled? So what is the fallback option? how do you future proof your entire supply chain? Okay, so these are the different types of activities which makes it necessary to manage. Just putting that into quotes, it needs to be managed, it needs to be controlled, and it cannot be allowed just like a free flow as if it's just a a river that is flowing of materials that is getting converted and flowing into the warehouses. All right, so that is the essence of having a supply chain management solution. Now I'll come to what are the main tasks, and I'm just going to borrow uh, a concept that was devised by the Supply Chain Council, which is an organization of independent supply chain professionals all over the globe. So they have built a framework which is called as Supply Chain Operations Reference, which is termed as SCORE. Now, SCORE basically attempts using this specific picture. This is a copyright, by the way, of SCORE, and it says that supply chain management primarily means these activities. It says source, make, deliver, return, and you need to do planning for all these activities. So sourcing primarily means your procurement activities. In very simple words, procurement means sourcing. Making means production. Conversion of your raw material and using the packaging material so that it can be now loaded into the vehicles and shipped out of the factories, and can flow through a maze of warehouses and delivered to your customers. And deliver obviously means transportation. It could be a transportation of raw material, packing material, and any other thing that goes into making of the product, and as well as the finished product as well. Okay. And return basically is the activity which involves the flow of any kind of material in the reverse direction, which could be finished products which is returned by the customer because of poor quality or over ordering, whatever could be the reason, and similar explanation for returning of the material from an aggregator or equipment manufacturer back to his suppliers because of different accounts. It could be rework or it could be over ordering as well. So these are the major tasks in supply chain management. Now, when we look at same tasks at more detailed level, but from the perspective of a time horizon, and try to classify what are the strategic activities, what are the tactical activities and operational, there are a hell lot of activities that go on into strategy also. So for an example, when you make a supply chain strategy, we basically make a design of the network. We define where are going to be the factories, when my product demand is in certain markets, where should I set up my base for suppliers, which kind of transportation method should I use? Should I go for air freight? Should I go for ship-based movement? Should I go by surface transportation? So that is the meaning of network design. Who are going to be my partners? Should I tie up with DHL? Should I partner with FedEx? Should I partner with Amazon? Should I partner with Walmart? So these are the partnership decisions one has to make to design supply chain at a strategic level. Same goes with product design. What kind of product design should I do? What kind of packaging should be there? What kind of primary, secondary, third level of packaging that should be there? What kind of information technology, tracking tools, planning tools? There are tools which are meant for giving you a lot of control over the visibility. What kind of tools are going to be decided? So these are the strategic activities that are to be done in supply chain. On a tactical level, we need to do a little bit more, execution and a combination of planning and execution. We do planning based on what kind of overall sales are going to happen. We do activities like sales and operations planning is one of the very commonly used terminologies, which basically says that, okay, at a country level or region level, what is my sales going to do of a specific product category? Where am I going to meet that demand? Which factory is going to produce? And then where I'm going to get the raw material for such kind of to meet a sales plan. We also then end up defining what kind of key parameters, key performance indicators are going to be there. What kind of good manufacturing practices, transportation practices are going to be there. Are we going to be the best in the industry? Okay, such kind of decisions are made at tactical level. Okay. Further, at operational level, which is a day-to-day activities to be done, a lot of time is gone into doing the execution and as well as slightly more different major functions within a supply chain perspective when we look at the different activities from strategic, tactical, and operational perspective. Now, I'll take a small intervention again, going to quote the words from another great from the history, uh, none other than Alexander the Great. So Alexander was known to be absolutely ruthless and efficient, as well as very innovative in his tactics. And he also relied a lot on the logisticians. He said that logistics is going to be the most perfect part of my operations. Otherwise, if these people fail and if my campaign fails, these are the people I'm going to kill one by one. Okay, he would kill his enemies later, but if there is any kind of an error from his logistics team, they're ones going to be suffer the most. So the importance again of logistics and supply chain is has been there with us, if not recorded and not being taught in MBA colleges, but always been there as part of practice. How supply chain has evolved ever since we have been having very formal, industrial or management related education. Just a second. Is my screen still available? Can you still see?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So, how the supply chain management as a topic has been evolving in last 60, 70 years of a proper industrial and management related education. In the 60s, after the World War, as the country started to rebuild their operations and started to gain their lost ground because of the World War II, a lot of focus was on the inventory management and providing the cost control. In the 70s, there was lots of buzz in the market in the operations management around materials planning, materials requirement planning, MRP as we call it today. And basically it meant a lot of attention on buying a specific set of raw material as much as driven by the finished products production requirements. And it incorporated more things like, okay, not only the quantity is important, but also the timing when the product should be made available. So that is where the things started to really change, in where time as a perspective in the entire supply chain management as a perspective started to happen. Further, we saw the concepts of manufacturing resource planning, which we also know as MRP2, which expanded the jurisdiction of material requirements planning. And with of Japanese manufacturing techniques, we also we had a huge impact because of concept like Kaizen, Kanban, just in time as management topics. And then in the 90s and in the 2000s, we had the advent of software or management concepts rather, in terms of enterprise resource planning, which took an integrated view beyond just manufacturing. It had the view of the transportation or the human resources management or the finances, etc., into the entire purview of the supply chain planning. So everybody was being part of the entire management of supply chain as a topic. Very recently, I'll just refer to the last block, which talks about the recent trends that are there as far as supply chain management goes. Apart from using the concepts of material requirement planning or enterprise resources planning, a lot emphasis is happening on how do I get more and more visibility by having several kind of collaboration techniques with my vendors, with my customers, and my vendors as well, and to have very tight control on where is my vehicle currently, where is my that specific pallet lying right now at this specific moment. And then there is a lot of technology that is being used, like augmented reality, virtual reality. Lots of decision making is now happening using artificial intelligence, machine learning. It's for, just to give an example, Amazon or Colgate Palmolive. I've just put in a few names in the subsequent slides. These are the companies who are really investing a lot in making all the decisions where to inventorize, which source to purchase from, how much should be the safety stock. When we get orders to be delivered in certain pin codes of a specific geography, what kind of transportation medium is to be used. So of humans and their everything. Companies based on and more technology to make this decisions. Robotic, again, it's a drive for eliminating as involvement management as and making those and look at this paper into our supply chain. So if you look at any kind of transportation kind of scenario, there will be a bunch of bill of loading, the sales invoices, there will be multiple copies of sales. The ethical and sustainable supply chains is to do as little paperwork as possible, as well as using the transportation method or using the sources which involve least kind of damage to the environment. Also, there is an ethical part in terms of the human rights and its violations in the entire supply chain. There are historically there are several supply chains in which for an instance, low cost labor or child labor is involved, especially the supply chains which originate in your cocoa powders, chocolates, and lots of commodities like wheats and rice and sugar, etc., which origin in Africa. Supply chains are known to be very exploitative supply chains, to say that word. Also, some of the supply chains which originate is like Taiwan, etc., which are very low cost countries, and these also exploited supply chain. Consciously, a lot of people are now making those supply chains more and more ethical by providing their higher wages, more safety, and more livable. Not just technology, but it is also the philosophy of supply chain that is, under the question. How many minutes before we rejoin? Sorry.
It's just
okay.
2 minutes.
5 minutes more. Okay. 5 minutes more. Okay. Right. So let me continue. All right. So what are the typical? We talked about the structure of supply chain. We looked at the flow of the materials. We looked at why supply chain management is required. The evolution of supply chain management topic. Right now, what are people really come across when they perform a profession of a supply chain management profession? So there are demand sides, there are supply sides, and there's natural things and political things that supply chain professional keeps on encountering. There is demand which is unpredictable. So certain, television, for an example, which is, based on a certain technology like an LCD, display kind of, and out of in 5-6 years, it is completely out of the market, but there is something new that is, replaced, and the technology is completely whitewashed. It has become obsolete. So there is very little prediction in terms of demand. Same thing goes about which chocolate is going to sell in what quantities, which toothpaste is going to sell in what quantities, what soaps, what medicine. So you name anything that you come into the encounter in the market, and where there is really not more than 70-80% of prediction that can happen. In fact, if you do 70-80% of accurate forecasting, you are considered to be good. I have just put it also as one of the performance measures in one of my subsequent slides. So hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're audible.
Yeah. So also with the technology and with advent of e-commerce, etc., the consumer preferences are changing. People are wanting deliveries to be done really fast. People as in the distributors are wanting much more smaller lot sizes of supply. The machineries are changing and so on. So there is a continuous change that is happening on the demand side. Supply sides, the lead times and quality of supply is one. Sorry, I am hearing an echo. And then there are challenges posed by the natural elements. There are volcanoes, there are earthquakes, there are tsunamis, and there are diseases, just like the one that we are facing right now. Most of the customers that I'm currently working with, shut down completely. They had no clue when they are going to start up, whether their suppliers are going to start up, etc. Luckily, as we come to a certain phase of this pandemic, we are at least in my company, I'm seeing a lot of my customers are in bits and pieces. They are able to pick up certain parts of their operations. Somewhere the production is happening, somewhere the warehouses are happening, and so on. So diseases like this, and this is probably one of its kind that has come across human races for last so many years, that the entire supply chains are absolutely disrupted and come to a grounding halt. And then there are political reasons. There are oil wars that are happening. There is a trade war that is happening recently. In the last few months, we saw the trade wars between China and in the US. And then riots and coups, especially at the African geography. These instances are not uncommon, and these basically are the points or the events in the history that the supply chain professionals have to be ready and be able to manage these challenges. Then there are slightly technical things like what is a bullwhip effect and what do you mean by communication. A bullwhip effect is one of the challenges, very common to supply chain industry, is that it's a phenomenon in which a minor change, very small change at the demand side creates a kind of a havoc on the supply chain constituents on the upstream side. Just to give an example, if you are saying that a certain soap manufacturer, certain demand of a soap or a biscuit, for an example, falls down, it basically leads to major